Hi, this is Anil. I was fortunate to be the All India Rank 1 holder in RBI exam back in 2018. Now, I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of Oliveboard as a super mentor for their RBI Grade B programs. If you are aspiring to crack this exam in 2024, I will be available as a super mentor to discuss one-on-one with you, share strategy lessons, draw lessons from my preparation and set you up for success. Click the link below to check out the details. See you on Oliveboard soon.
Hi guys, welcome to Oliveboard. My name is Lakshmi and in this very session we are going to talk about national income. So in this national income part, I first want to request you all go back, see what is SEBI's syllabus with respect to economics. So in that economic syllabus, it becomes, I guess, your third topic. If at all I have to just rate, number the topics, that it is your third topic. And we have already talked about national income aggregates in my last session. So in this very session, I'm going to talk about national income calculation. Before moving ahead, I would also like to request you, as you have seen, it is, SEBI has a different other way of forming questions. So in your RBI and Nabard, it is more tilted towards current part, but in your SEBI, we have seen in the last couple of years, it is more towards the static portion of it. So that's why, do go back and see what are there in the PYQs. One more thing, for the PDF of this very session, download the Oliveboard's app and in the YouTube classes PDF section, you will get the session's PDF as well. Now, last class we discussed about what is national income. In the national income calculation, I talked about that, we take into account the factor incomes. These factor incomes are being earned by four factors by four factors that are land, labor, capital and entrepreneur. So, these are the four factors and upon which we earn factor income. So, from land, we get rent. From labor, we get wages, or, labor get wages for whatever they are doing. Wages or salaries, you can also say. Sometimes it's also bonuses. So, capital, whenever, you are deploying your capital or your investment, it is there. So, you get interest for the entrepreneurial activity or the risk taking appetite which an entrepreneur takes. So he gets in return profit. So I just calculate, I just add upon all these four things, I come upon a number that is your national income. And in economic terms, whenever I say I am calculating national income, what I am coming upon is NNP at factor cost. Net national product at factor cost. So, why factor cost? Because I'm just taking into account all these factors from which income is being earned. That means I'm not calculating the net indirect taxes involved. When I'm going to take, into account that as well, that means I'm going for market price. Anyways, whenever somebody says calculate national income, you should be thorough. It is NNP at factor cost. One more thing, it is national income. That means the income that is earned by Indians. These Indians might be living in India or abroad as well. So all the goods and services, all the final goods and services that are being produced either by the Indians or by the people who are living abroad, that is what you call it as your national income. I hope that's clear to you all. Moving ahead, the domestic income. Now guys, see, whenever I say domestic income, domestic words means that some territory is involved, some geographical boundary is involved. So that simply means that whenever I am talking about domestic income, I am talking about the final goods and services produced within the domestic boundary during an accounting year after depreciation. So that means depreciation is being accounted for whenever we try to calculate your domestic income. Now, why am I so much interested in domestic income? Why? Because generally countries are being assessed by their GDP number. GDP is 7.2, GDP will become 6.8. So if we are taking into account gross domestic product number, when I am saying these numbers are very important, so we have to calculate domestic income as well, domestic. That is where, domestic income calculation comes into being. One more thing, whenever somebody says you national income, you are going to calculate NNP at FC. But whenever somebody is going to tell you calculate domestic income, you are going to calculate NDP at FC. Net domestic product at factor cost. So that's how you are actually calculating. Now, if you'll ask me, why are we so much interested in, this domestic product? First of all, what is there in this domestic income calculation? Domestic income calculation comprises of the income that is earned within the geographical territory. So the total goods and services produced within the geographical territory of a nation. If I am talking about India, then yes, in the Indian territory, whatever is being produced. So if I am talking about, territory that is of India, whatever goods and services produced in that territory, that also means that that product might be formed by some US citizen, some UK citizen. Indians, definitely they'll be there, but a firm may be there which is UK led, which is US led. If that firm is producing certain goods and services, then what? Then it's very simple. We are going to calculate them as well. Whatever goods and services produced by them, we are going to calculate them as well. Why do you think we are so much interested in domestic word and all? Because we want to find out how apt are our policy, our government want to find out how aptly policies are being framed in terms of ease of doing business. If at all policy framework is such that it is supporting framework or not, supporting businesses or not. So ease of doing business is one thing that is there in the mind while we are going for the domestic income calculation. Now, if we are really interested in domestic income, so we are going to calculate NDP at FC. One more thing, I have already told you multiple times that the 8 aggregates that we have already discussed, if we know any one of them, we can calculate all the seven others. So that's how we can just calculate. Now when we are so much talking about income, let's see how is this measured, how are we going to calculate it, what is the total measurement thing which is involved. So there are 3 methods via which national income is being calculated. So the first method is your value added method. This is sometimes also called as your product method. Next comes your income method. Lastly, it's your expenditure method. Whenever I say value added method or I say product method, just I'm giving you a hint of it before getting deep into this. So when I'm saying value added method, I'm just taking into account how is value being added from raw material when we are going towards intermediate goods. So what is the amount of value that we are adding in a product? And when we are going from intermediate goods to final products, how are we going to add the value to it? So simply in the value added method, if you'll ask me, how are we, in which sector are we going for this value added method, then it's your agri sector primarily. It's easier to calculate the agri sector income via this value added method. Certainly calculating this in services sector becomes a little tricky. So that's why value added method specifically applies to those products in which value addition thing is very clear. We are actually able to find it out. Otherwise we can use income method. Now what is this income method? So if there is a land involved, there is labor involved, there is capital involved, there is entrepreneur which is there. So these are the 4 factors that we talked about very recently. So if these 4 factors are being involved, we are just going to calculate or add up the incomes, the respective incomes which we have been earned by them. We are just going to add that. We say we are following income method. So if these 4 factors are there, we deploy income method into place. Lastly, your expenditure method. See, it's very easy to find out what are the household spending. It's very easy to calculate, manufacturing sector or construction sector. It's very easy to find out manufacturing sector and construction sector income. Or expenditure, whatever they are spending, whatever is the investment of the households, whatever the expenditure is of the government. So if we are, it's easy to find out these expenditure things. We go on for expenditure method. Now if you'll ask me, what is the government doing? How is Government of India calculating? Government is using all of these 3 methods. Wherever it finds easier, like for value addition, if at all some secondary sector is there, some manufacturing sector is there, it's very easy to calculate this. We use value added. If at all, government wants to see, how is the land yielding the rent, how is the labor getting the wages, if at all it's easier to calculate that, we go for income method. else, let's take an example of manufacturing sector. If some manufacturing sector, some construction sector is involved, it's very easier to go for expenditure method. Simply we'll calculate from expenditure method. So these are the three primary measurements technique for your national income calculation. I hope that's clear to you all. Moving ahead, let's see how are we going to measure the value added method, or how is this value addition method being used. So what we actually do is we take value of the output. So what is the value of the output? In the value of output, I am going to subtract all the intermediate goods, because I don't want to double count. So that's why I am going to subtract the intermediate goods, or the value of intermediate goods, and we'll reach upon a number that is called as GVA, gross value added at market price, because after all the value is being calculated at current market price. Then we can back calculate it at the constant prices. Wait, we'll discuss about that as well, but now on we'll get GVA at market prices. Anyways, so this is the way primarily which I use for value added method. So I'll try to see what is the value of output. Now how can we calculate the value of output? There are two things. We'll see what is the sales, how much sale is happening. This sale can be domestic sale, domestically whatever I'm being selling. Apart from domestic sales, it can also be the exports. What I am exporting, that can also be my sale. So either it is domestically or internationally, whatever is the sales, I'm saying it is the value of output. Now there can be one scenario when there is no sale, nothing is being sold out. So in that case scenario, I'll see what is the change in the inventory. Whatever goods and services were produced, but I was not able to sell it. So what is the change in the inventory? If I'm going to see that is where your GVA calculation comes into being. We must deduct the following things if we are calculating GVA method. What is that? Net indirect taxes, capital consumption, raw material or intermediate goods. So we are just going to subtract it, and we are going to reach upon a number that is GVA, gross value addition. And once we are able to calculate gross value addition, GVA MP for multiple segment, we are just going to add GVA from all the other segments. Let's say this was for sector number 1, this is for agri sector, this might be for automobile sector, so on so forth, and we'll come on to a number which is GDP at market prices. So that is how we calculate value added method using all these things. Next comes your income method. Now when I say income method comes from the income that is earned upon some factors. I have already discussed the 4 factors, but if at all I have to tell you, whenever I calculate income method, what I get is NDP, net domestic product at factor cost. What I get is net domestic product at factor cost, which comprises of 5 things. First is profit. Profits that is earned as a dividend, that can be distributed amongst the owners. Profit that might be some retained earnings, some business houses retain some of their profits for further enhancement of capital or something like that. Lastly, profit also comprises of the corporate taxes that a corporate might be giving. So these are your first portion of your NDPFC calculation, or you can say income method calculation when we say profit. Next, after profit comes the second part. What is it? It is rent. Again, rent we get from land, right? Then in the next portion, it's your interest. Interest is being, we get the interest from the capital that we are putting in. After interest, then comes your mixed income. You might be working as a freelancer, you might be earning from there, or other multiple sources. Lastly, after the mixed income, the last one which is there is the employees' share, or you can say the compensation of employees. Compensation of employees. So under the compensation of employees, There can be, compensation that is in the form of cash. You might get cash from your employer. You might get something in kind or bonus as well. So these are the 5 things that are actually looked into when we are going to calculate your income method. Income from income method. So one is your profit, then comes your rent, then interest, then some mixed income, some freelancing income and all, and lastly it's the compensation of employees or the employees share. So compensation of employees and all these you can just learn via an acronym which is PRIME, and that is what is used in this income method. Don't write this anywhere, it's just a way of learning things. So that is how you can learn that how we are going to calculate your income method. So once we got this NDP FC, NDP at factor cost, now you can change it in anything. You can either convert it into GDP, you can convert it into GNP, you can convert it into NNP, that we have dealt in the last segment. After this, let's say how are we going to calculate expenditure? How are we going to calculate the national income using expenditure method? So when we are going to calculate your national income using expenditure method, I'm going to see what is the government expenditure on goods and services, first thing. Then I am going to see what is the gross capital formation. What is the gross capital formation? What is government spending? That we have already seen. Then comes your gross capital formation. Whatever is the gross capital that is being formulated, that is being formed. Then comes your private consumption expenditure. And in that you can also write private final consumption expenditure. We have seen what is the government spending. Then we have seen what is the amount of investment that is going in the economy. Then we are seeing what is the private, the household, consumption that is there. Lastly, we are also going to see what are the net exports. Net exports means your export minus import. So that's the case. Now, when we are just going to add all these expenditures, we'll reach on a number that is, what you call it as GDP. That is what you call it as GDP at market price. And once you have got this GDP at market price aggregate, you can just, calculate other 7 aggregates as well. So guys, government spending on goods and services, this is very simple. Whatever the government is spending, government might be spending, on some Manrega like scheme or some other schemes as well, giving the wages or the salaries to the people, that can also be there. When I'm saying gross capital formation, gross capital formation means what is the level of investment that a household, a business or some other is doing within the economy. So that is your gross capital formation. Then comes your private fixed consumption expenditure. Whatever the households are spending, that can be in, some gross domestic fixed capital. Household might be, having some fixed capital being created. So that can also be the case. Otherwise, you can also say whatever is the change in the stocks. So all these features you might be, you might be in a need when you are going for some numerical calculation. So that's why, I'm just elaborating this any further. Lastly, your net export, your export minus import. So that is where, all this expenditure method is being used. I hope that's clear to you all. Next and the last one, I guess before moving ahead, I just want to say once again that if you'll ask me, ma'am, which is the method which the government of India is doing, I'll say all. Government is using all of these methods. Either government will be using value added or this income method, or lastly your expenditure method. So apart from this, if I have to just sum it up, whatever we have read, I just need to sum whatever we have read, what is the calculation of national income. If I say through value added method, what I get is In the value added method, I will calculate value of output minus the intermediate cost, whatever is cost I am earning as an intermediate. I'll get onto a number that will be GDP at MP. This is what I'll get. Next is the method which I talked about, was your income method. In the income method, what I'm using is, I'm using PRIME. PRIME. Profit, rent, interest, mixed income, lastly the employee's share or the compensation which is given to the employees. So when I'm just calculating all of these, I'll reach a figure that is NDP at factor cost, because after all I'm just considering the factors involved. Lastly comes your expenditure method. Lastly comes your expenditure method. When I'm talking about expenditure method, I hope you all remember, it was either the government spending or it was the gross capital formation that happened in the economy. Then it was private final consumption expenditure. Lastly, it was your export, or you can just denote it via X, the net export. So if I am just calculating these 4 parameters, I am using expenditure method, and with this expenditure method, what I am going to reach is upon GDP at market price. So that is how we calculate all these national income via all these methods, all the 3 methods. I hope I have summed it up in one page only, and you were able to remember all of the things that we have read up till now. I hope that's clear to you all. Now, before moving into this, I want to see one thing, that how are, whenever we are talking about all these things, we also must see that how do we calculate our GDP. So let's take an example first. Let's say, I wanted to buy some, I just wanted to see how is the economy performing. So what I did was, I took rice. Rice we get in kgs, I hope that's clear, right? Then I took milk. Milk I get in liters. Fair enough. Now I cannot, use this, let's say the quantity of rice that I was to, get in 2012, because that is what the base year, recent base year for national income calculation is. So, at that particular time, the quantity of rice that I was able to produce, or the country was able to, just a hypothetical number, it was 100 kgs. And the milk that the country was able to produce was 50 liters, a hypothetical number. Now I cannot add this 50 kg, 50 liter and 100 kgs. So what I am going to do is, I am going to find what was the prevalent prices at that time. Us time pe price kya thi? What were the prices at that time? So certainly, rice at that particular time I was getting for 10 rupees per kg, and the milk at that particular time I was getting for, let's suppose, let's say 20 per liter. So what I'm going to find out is the total, the total value of goods and services produced. So total value of rice was 1000 rupees, and total value for this milk, it was again 1000 rupees only. Now standing in the year 2024, I saw that what was the quantity of rice that I was able to produce. So I was able to produce 120 kgs of rice. Fair enough, very good. But what were the prices? The prices were same. But in the milk, I was able to produce 50 liters of milk only. What were the prices? The prices was 50 per liter. What was the total value of goods and services produced? The total value was 1200 for this and 2500 for this. Now you will say, increase has happened in this as well, increase has happened in this as well. But in your rice, the total value is increased. Why? Because the production has increased and not the prices. So the increase which you are seeing is not because of the prices, the inflation that is there. It is because of the rise in production. But when I talk about milk, if I say milk, why is the milk, showing a greater number, or the total value, why is it increasing? It is primarily, or you can say only, because of the price rise, because of the inflation, and not because of the final goods and services, because they are produced more. So that is one thing that you must keep in your mind when we are going for your GDP calculation, that also means that when we are seeing if economy is growing or not, that cannot be done if we are just multiplying the quantity and the prices at today's rate. So we have to find some parameters, and that is where constant prices and current prices came into being. Now what are these current prices? Current prices are the prices that I am paying as of now. I am paying 60 liters for the milk or 50 liters per liter for the milk. So that is the current price. This is what are the prevalent market prices at this point of time. But when I say constant prices in our national income calculation, we have fixed the constant price for the base year, you can say. So 2012 is the base year from which we are actually we have calculated all the constant prices. So what I am going to do is, if we'll see that what is the rise of national income, in this it is 3700. Or rise ni, if I just want to find out, if I just want to calculate the total value of goods and services produced, in this it is 3700. At this it was rupees 2000. But does it show the true picture? I hope you are clear with it. No. So then what I have to do is, I will not use the current prices because these were the current prices. I am going to use the constant prices. So if I just calculate it over here itself, for this the constant prices will be 1200 only, and for this accordingly it will be 15 to 20, again 1000. So what is the increase? It is of 200 only, not 3700. Why this change is there? Because it is GDP deflator. That is what we will study about next. So GDP deflator is the ratio of country's economy's value of goods and services generated in a particular year at current prices to base year prices. So this is your current price on which we calculate nominal GDP, and when we are going to calculate on at the current prices whatever will be the real GDP, that is, if we are just dividing that, we'll come on to a number that is your GDP deflator. That actually shows that whatever is the rise in your GDP, either it is because of the inflation that is there, or there is genuinely, if there is a rise in the goods and services that are being produced. If the goods and services that are being produced has it increased, or it is still static, so that is where we find GDP deflator. What is the formula? So your GDP calculation at current prices and your real GDP, or the GDP calculation at constant prices. Constant, by that I mean base year prices. If I'll just calculate that, if I am given this number, then 3700 divided by these 3700 divided by this 2200, because after all 3700 shows the nominal GDP, the 2200 shows the real GDP. The real, why real? Because this real calculation has been done on constant prices, and this one is done on current prices. Current prices, the prices that are being prevalent in the market. So we just want to see what is the level of GDP which is there on the account of increase in goods and services produced, and not merely because of the inflation involved. I hope that's clear to you all. If you have any query, you can ask. Else, we'll just wind up the session over here itself. We are going to proceed, in the upcoming sessions with the other portions of the syllabus. But before that, I would request you all, do go back and revise this chart, because after all, whatever if at all some numerical comes, see, I don't expect a very big numerical to be there. Why? Because calculators are not allowed. You won't get, such a big calculation to be done. You will not be, asked to calculate all these numbers. But definitely they can ask you, some smaller calculations. They can either give you this GDP figures, and they can ask you to calculate it. So that's why I just want to tell you, I have summed up whatever we have read in today's class. We have tried to sum up the GDP method, the national income calculation method over here, and also the GDP deflator thing over here. So that's all from my side. For more such session, do visit the Oliveboard's regulatory body channel. Thank you.
The journey to crack one of India's toughest exams, the RBI Grade B, is long, one that needs perseverance and the right strategy. Hi, this is Anil. I was fortunate to be the All India Rank 1 holder in RBI exam back in 2018. If you are aiming to crack this exam in 2024, I might be able to help you achieve this dream. As a super mentor for the RBI program on Oliveboard, I'm available to interact one-on-one with you, share strategy lessons, and draw insights from my own preparation and set you up for success. Click the link below to check out the details. See you on Oliveboard soon.